Let's patch with Philippine Institute of Certified Quantity Surveyors or PICQS as your hosts, AJ Paredes and Jose Carlo Padilla share an exclusive interview with Metro Pacific Tollway Corporation's Senior Contracts Manager, Engineer Clarence Elmer Quismundo. Listen to his own APC journey and the story behind his case study, review of the preliminary engineering design and budgetary estimate of a proposed major expressway. Let's hear it from him firsthand as Engineer Quismundo shares tips on how to possibly ace your final assessment interview. All these and more this Saturday, April 17, 3 p.m. Manila time. See you!
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I am always delighted and excited to be with all of you. And today is another patch session. It's a rainy Saturday afternoon here in Singapore, and we have a lot to share with the guest of honor that we are having this afternoon. So, for those who are new, Patch is PICQS APC Talks channel aiming to provide overviews about chartered and certified professionals' APC journey, PICQS structured trainings, and every quantity surveyor's road to becoming QS professionals in order to maximize their career potential. Okay, so for those who are not so familiar with PICQS, Philippine Institute of Certified Quantity Surveyors is an all-Filipino QS organization with a global reach. In a span of 10 years, PICQS has formed 12 chapters around the globe, including Philippines, UK, UAE, Oman, Qatar, Bahrain, KSA, North America, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, and our most recent formed chapter, BIM Indochina. Our members are mostly QS trained engineers, architects, and other allied profession practicing the quantity surveying globally, and we have structured trainings to patch up their required competencies towards exponential career growth. Okay, so at this juncture, I would like to call in my co host who will be joining me in this patch session. Okay, so our co-host for this afternoon forms part of the global communications of PICQS. He is the current head for communications for PICQS Singapore chapter, an arbitrator himself who is also very passionate with contracts administration and contract practice. So I'm pretty sure it will be just a matter of time and he will be one of our guests here in Patch and who will be sharing his own APC journey. Let us welcome my co-host for this afternoon, Jose Carlo Padilla. Ayan. Hi, JC. Welcome to Patch.
Hello, everyone. Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of Patch, where we discuss your APC journey with the people who has already experienced them. But before everything else, I would like to thank you for having me as your co-host for today, and to all our members from our 12 chapters all over the globe. Good afternoon, and I am truly honored and flattered to for me to get invited today after the
Of course.
successful pilot of the patch. So
I would
it's
like
really
to correct. Yes, and I'm also very excited to do this hosting with you. I remember there was a time when we were discussing about, having a talks or having a talk online, sharing our views about contractual issues and stuff like that because of the field where we are in. And now
Mhm.
it is really happening and you're with me together. We are together here hosting Patch and our very special guest for this afternoon who is equally very passionate on contracts also, right?
Yes,
So without
yes.
how's the weather there in Singapore where I also am?
Okay, so I would have to apologize and to inform everyone that we are currently having a thunderstorm and
Yes,
quite a heavy down
downpour.
downpour.
Yes.
I almost said downfall, downpour of rain. So you might hear you might hear tick in in the background
Correct.
because of the heavy rain, but let that not damp the atmosphere today, because we are very happy and we are very lucky that our guest for today has agreed uh, to be featured in this today's
Patch.
episode pala. Today's
Yes.
episode of Patch.
Yes, I'm very excited to share for this sharing that we're going to have this afternoon. And I'm very grateful for you, JC, because I understand that you are also having a very tight schedule with the projects that we are in right now. I think this is at peak. And thank you very much for your time hosting this with me. It's really a great pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you.
And it will be such an honor to introduce our guest speaker for this afternoon. I mean, our our guest for this afternoon is none other than he is a professional civil engineer like us, and he is a chartered quantity surveyor. He is a certified master construction contract administrator, a certified construction cost engineer. He is also a graduate of the Mapua Institute of Technology, and with more than 30 years of experience in construction and engineering, quantity surveying, contract administration, construction management, cost control, claims and dispute, and construction law, which he has acquired through formal study, work practice, and trainings.
Yes, and his sorry, and his body of work included stints in all types of organizations. Ah, di ba may pakulog? Contractor, consultant, and employer or concessionaires, with projects ranging in both vertical and horizontal, with major infrastructures. He was involved in various capacities in most of the major tollways in the country, such as SLEX, SCTEX, Skyway, Cavitex, and Calax. And he is currently the Senior Contracts Manager and Head of the Contracts Administration of the Metro Pacific Tollway South Management Corporation.
Wow. Okay. Such an extensive experience he has. And on top
Yes.
of his regular work, he is also a part time lecturer and resource speaker since 2006. And he is an occasional writer also. So, among the
Mm.
reputable training institutions he belonged to are the Philippine Institute of Built Environment, or PIBE, and the Knowledge Plus Academy, or KPA, where he lectures on the subjects of quantity surveying and contract practice. So in late 2019, he completed the 52nd Leadership and Management Development Program, or LMDP, a 6-month higher management course at the Ateneo Graduate School of Business under the company's Build 1.3 program, sponsoring selected employees only, where he received the Director's Award for Academic Excellence and he even finished top 2 of his class. So
Wow.
so why don't we call him on board inside our studio, Engineer Clarence Elmer Quismundo.
Good
Engineer,
day.
hi.
Yeah. Hi, good
Hi,
afternoon, sir.
JC. Good day to
Good
everyone.
afternoon,
I
sir.
know we have a global audience, so whatever time it is, whether morning, afternoon, or evening, a good day to all of you. And I felt old when you were introducing me with all those records, all those records of employments and achievement. I felt old, but age is just a number. And it's a pleasure to be invited here. Well, actually, Julie mentioned this to me as early as last year. It's one of her pet programs, and I'm glad that it's now materialized. Of course, when she asked me if I want to be a participant of this program, of course, who can say no? Di ba? I
Yes.
said yes. I could have done this earlier, like what I told you, but because my terrible schedule, uh, I was only able to do this today. But like taking the cue from Enrico, I'm your third victim. But third time's a charm. So it's okay. Yeah.
Indeed. Third
So
time's the charm.
I want to share my story because it's quite interesting. I'm sure many of you will be able to identify with what I have experienced, in this journey, and hopefully, you learn something out of it, and you do your best and to follow the guidelines that I will be able to impart to all of you, and we wish everybody success.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. Actually, from even our initial talks, I've already gained a lot during our first conversation, and I think JC also has his share of his first encounter with you, right,
Yes.
JC?
So
Yeah.
yeah, so my first encounter with Sir Clarence was during the pilot P3T here in Singapore. So the first P3T here, we are the first batch. So we have to fly the instructors from the Philippines to Singapore for them to deliver the lecture. So when it was Sir Clarence's time, I was really impressed with the presentation that he gave, with the confidence and with the wealth of knowledge that he brings along with him. It's very impressive.
Correct. Mr. Clarence has always been, an inspiration whenever he gives talks. It's not just the quality of what he delivers, but there's always like bonus tracks with his talks. Like he would give an advice or to his the attendees of the webinars that you
Yes.
know he is a speaker. And then without further ado, why don't we move to the next part of our program, which is okay. So we have that. We will talk about your experience, sir, because you have prepared APC through your experience. I mean, let's talk about how you have learned about the PICQS first. So, how did you learn about the Philippine Institute of Certified Quantity Surveyors?
Well, before I was not aware that there is already an organization of Filipino quantity surveyors. Uh, I actually started my journey uh, as a solo, you know, as a
Mhm.
solo professional, and I had to rely first on my own wits and initiative. It's quite hard, but when I started this, I was with my former employer, which is Perth Consult. When I started my journey, I was with Perth Consult. And I actually completed my APC when I was with them. And it was a project of Perth Consult that I used as my case study uh, when I applied for the APC. But ironically, you will learn later that it has a direct relation to my current employment now. So that is why these two employers are interconnected. They bridge they bridge my journey. These two
Mhm.
employers bridge my journey to this APC experience. And uh, PICQS was introduced to me by a colleague. He's a longtime friend by the name of Jose Felipe Domingo, fondly called Joffy. I think some of our audience knows him because he's also a longtime member of the PICQS, and Julie also knows him. So he's the one who told me that we already have established to the noble initiative of our chairman and founder that we already have an established institution or organization of quantity surveyors that aims to elevate our level of skill, aims to cater to the needs of the Filipino quantity surveyor to make us more globally competitive with our
Mhm.
international counterparts. So, and I think Julie is really the right person to do this. And I'm grateful to be a member of the PICQS.
Wow. Yes, we
That's
couldn't
great.
agree
That's
more.
nice.
Both of us here, and I believe all of our viewers who can relate to what you have just mentioned, your testimony about PICQS, and it was just unfortunate, I think, but that PICQS structured training wasn't still up when you were taking your APC, but with your years of experience in the construction industry, you aced the interview. So, can we
Yes.
just ask, yes, so how did you come to know about the assessment of professional competence?
Before, if you know LinkedIn,
Mm.
during the early years of LinkedIn, I was very active. Uh, I became an early member of the LinkedIn website. And during those days, it's not like today. There's so many ads and job placements, and sometimes it's so boring now to read LinkedIn. But not to put them down. LinkedIn is still a good organization. I had a lot of networks and friends there. But during the early days, there were a lot of commercial and technical discussion groups uh, in
Mm.
various forums and various groups inside the LinkedIn website, and I was very active there. In fact, if I recall, I participated in more than 500 discussions there. I,
Wow.
I argued, I debated, and I exchanged knowledge and information with international counterparts. Kumbaga, sinausawan ko sila lahat, so to speak. And it was from one of them that I learned about the RICS and the APC, because part really of what I'm doing there is uh, I want to test how we compare, how Filipino quantity surveyors or Filipino construction professionals compare with the international counterparts. Are we ahead? Are we behind? Uh, are we at par with them? So I want to get noticed. Basically, I want them to notice me. And you know what I found? We're not behind them. In fact, in some aspects, we are even ahead in terms of skill. And that's what
Mm.
I'm proud of
Interesting.
Filipino professionals. When it comes to the construction industry and quantity surveying, we're not behind them. We can compete with them globally. We are at par as far as level of skill is concerned. The only disadvantage that we have is we're not native English speakers. How can
Mhm.
you compete with those people who are born in the United States or in England? So definitely they know how to speak English better than us because they because they're native speakers. But in terms of
Mm.
substance of what they're saying
Yeah.
and what we're saying, we are comparable to them. And it's something that we should all be proud of. We should not feel inferior uh, with our international counterparts. We are not inferior to them. We are
Yes.
That's
comparable. We
very
are
good to
comparable to
hear.
them.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, correct. We couldn't agree with you more, Sir Clarence, about that. I think with the way things are going now, in the construction industry, Filipinos are globally competitive. We are around the world, so to speak, right? We are. I mean, the Filipino QS of in particular, we are excelling in the world of quantity surveying. For example, we have in UAE, and we can hear the experiences of our own members in PICQS. Right, JC? JC here is also an achiever
Yes.
himself, and he at the moment he is also an arbitrator and one of the pride
Oh,
of
thank you.
PICQS as well. So
I think
I'm really
one of the
glad,
great.
knowing that JC is part of the pilot P3T program where I was a participant. I'm really proud to see how JC has become now.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I think that's one good traits of us Filipinos is we are very adaptive. So whether you place I mean, it doesn't matter what environment we are placed in, we will thrive and we will be able to cope up with all the challenges. And I think with the borders or with the international borders have been slowly blurring, so it's very important for us to stay globalized in terms of our skill set, so
mhm,
that we can go places. Literally, we can go places.
mhm,
And what Sir Clarence has said, we are not even behind, and in some aspects, you are even uh, we are even more forward thinking and more advanced in in so far
In
as
aspect,
competence. Yes,
Yeah.
in
right?
so far as
Well, you know,
competence with
true
others.
enough, somebody noticed me eventually. If I recall, one British national asked me, Clarence, I see that you're from the Philippines. It's not a country known for many quantity surveyors. How come you know all of these things that you're talking about? He asked me that. Well, you know, of course I read. Where else
Yes.
can I learn them? I read. I read anything, and I read everything. And you know, construction methods, construction technology, and construction methodologies are the same anywhere in the world.
Mhm.
It's the
Yes.
same. Financial and accounting principles are the same. You know,
Yes.
legal principles, they're just the same.
Yes.
So I told them,
Interpretation of contract clauses, especially FIDIC, are the same wherever you want,
yeah,
wherever you
it's
go,
the same.
or whichever jurisdictions you are practicing, or whichever jurisdiction you are in.
Yeah, and
Agree.
he happened to be a member of the RICS. So I
Mhm.
asked him, so how do you become a member of the RICS? Is this an exclusive organization? Well, Clarence, sad to say, it's quite exclusive, but there are some means to be a member. Some international countries has limited means to become a member. And then he asked me, "You want to be a member? I can help you." So that's the start. You know,
Uh,
all those debates that I participated in, where he saw me, no, it all bore fruit, and he finally noticed me and volunteered to give me pointers on how can I apply for the AP for the RICS APC, and that's where my journey started.
wow, that's very nice
That's
and inspiring story. Actually,
it is
Chair,
very inspiring,
yes, very
actually.
inspiring. And to think that Chair Julie has mentioned that you're the one of the first five Filipinos who went through the PER route with with Sir John, Ronnie, Samson, and Boyet Damot. So
Yeah,
it's
Wow.
it's a very moving experience, and we're so privileged to have you here with us now.
Yeah. And I
that
think
means that
one of
the five of us, maybe we are not too young, because the fact that we emerged to the PER route means that we are really
yeah.
that experienced.
Agree.
I think if there's one thing that is very obvious with the character or the demeanor of Sir Clarence is that it's very obvious that he's very hardworking. He's it's obvious that he he dreams and he dreams big, and he has the perseverance and the energy to pursue further. So I think that that characteristic we can imbibe and we can adopt as one of our mantras, like keep butting your head until something cracks and we'll let you
Yeah,
in. If I may, I'll just share when I was applying for law school, I was rejected actually twice
mm,
because I don't meet their minimum criteria. So what I did is that I developed my portfolio. I attended PCTs and everything. So just to get more experience on quantity surveying until finally on my third try, I was I was able to get through the admission process, and lo and behold, last year I completed my master's degree. So in construction law and arbitration. So I think hard work and uh, don't
Perseverance.
never say no. And never say no is one good trait that we can get from Sir Clarence today.
yeah,
If
I
there will
can
be one
identify
takeaway,
with
that
that.
will be the takeaway.
Yeah, I can really identify with that, because we can say we play the long game. We don't play the short game,
Yes.
right? So what we are doing right now is just baby steps to a bigger milestone, or to a bigger achievement that we are targeting. These are just
Correct.
a
We
step
are,
to everyone. So we always play the long game.
we
Correct.
are here for the long haul.
And we are but grateful for your presence, Mr. Clarence, and apart from that, for now being one of our subject matter experts. And you have JC can attest to your teaching skills as well, your
Yes.
passion for teaching, being the trainer for P3T when he was one of the first batch of P3T attendees or enrollees here in Singapore. And
Yes.
both of us we went through the structured training of PICQS, and we are very grateful for all the people behind it, the foundation of the PICQS structured training. And now you are also one of our trainers. So thank you for that, Mr.
Yes.
Clarence.
Yeah, I recall that in 2014, I came back to Singapore. That's only 1 year removed when I secured my APC. I took
Wow.
up my
Mm.
APC interview in Singapore actually,
Mm.
uh, under the leadership of Mr. Bill Jones. If you know Bill Jones,
Oh, Bill Jones. Yes.
he's in the governing council now, but he
Uh-huh.
held the post of ASEAN director of RICS for almost 10 years, and he was based in Singapore. And it
Mhm.
was him who arranged my APC there. I actually was given a choice of having it in Manila through a video conference or having an actual face-to-face APC interview in Singapore. I chose the Singapore route because I have a brother there. It's my chance to visit him and make some, recreation, pasyal along the way. You know,
Yes.
uh, so
So
I chose the Singapore
uh-huh.
APC.
At that time, sir, how long was the waiting time before you get the results?
At that time is about 2 weeks to 1 month.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah,
it's quite
that's
two
that's
weeks
fast.
to
quite
one month.
It's
long.
not. It's not that bad.
Okay, but so after the final assessment interview, so you had to fly here to Singapore, and then do the final assessment interview, and then have some quality time with your brother before you
Yes,
head back to the Philippines, and then wait for about 1 to 2 months. So
yes.
the way I can imagine the waiting time. I think the waiting time would
Well,
feel
Two longest months.
the waiting time is actually more stressful than the APC interview itself, you know,
True.
because I was thinking, did I really pass? I felt like I passed, but until I see the paper or until I see the
Hmm.
certificate, I cannot
Yeah.
really say that I passed. Because I was talking to my wife actually, I have never flunked a major examination in my life before. I don't want this to be the first. I don't want this APC
Pressure.
to be the first. And
uh,
when the mail came in, I actually gave it to my wife and I let her open it.
Oh.
She's the one who opened it. Okay, just don't say anything. Just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
wow, but
Well,
you
very
have
interesting, no? It's very interesting that Sir Clarence was given an option for a video conference for his APC, and look at the APC now. That's the default. It's by default now video conferencing. So the look how times have changed in a
yeah.
short span of it's just how
Yeah,
just a few
especially
years.
with the pandemic now, you really have no
Yes.
choice actually.
Hmm.
So
Yes, and what can we say? I think Mr. Clarence has broken the ground, towards going and then aiming for APC. I mean, after you, I'm I'm pretty sure that your experience in APC has influenced the structured training that we are going through, that are available in PICQS for its members. So, and how we have gone through your experience has inspired many. So why don't we share your case study through a your 10-minute of presentation? There you go. Okay. Take it
okay,
away, Sir Clarence. We're giving the floor to you for your case study presentation.
okay. I would like to share a summary of what I have done. This is a review of the preliminary engineering design of a proposed major expressway. This is an actual project right now. If you can see, that's the project alignment. To those of you who are familiar with the major infrastructures uh, being done in the Philippines, if you see this alignment, I'm sure some of you will be able to identify it. You know, I just didn't put it here, the exact name of the project, but I'm sure you will recognize it. It's a 4-lane, 45-kilometer toll expressway from Cavite to Laguna. So, this case study actually began when I was still connected with PERT Consult. When this project is being prepared for approval of the president, uh, PERT Consult being one of the foremost independent consultants of the DPWH in their various infrastructure projects, we were called upon by the Secretary of DPWH at that time. I believe it was Secretary Singson. We were being commissioned to conduct a review of the preliminary engineering design of the expressway, and along with it, also review the cost, because the way it was explained to us, it was not yet approved because the grantor and the president thinks that it is expensive. The project is approved in principle. The president agrees that it needs to be done, but he said it's too expensive. The budget is originally set at 40 billion pesos. So we need to address that, the general perception of the approving authorities, that the project is expensive. Otherwise, if they think it's too expensive, it might not be viable. It might not happen. But the project really needs to happen. So we need to see how the design can be improved. If we need to change something, or we need to adopt some special construction methods. So we need to study its constructability, and it's a huge project. We also need to check the material sources and see if some portions or elements can be removed or deferred if removal is not possible. So we have some really budgetary constraints. We need to substantially reduce the estimated cost of the project for it to be considered by the president as a viable infrastructure project. Because eventually the cost will be passed on to the people. The concessionaire who will do the expressway will eventually pass on the cost of the project to the motorists in terms of toll fee that will be
Yes,
charged in the
agree.
expressway. So we really need to bring down the cost to a manageable level for the benefit of the public. So it's really a huge challenge. And aside from the budgetary constraints, we are faced with a really very tight uh, time constraint. Uh, you know, the grantor, DPWH, needs to make recommendations to the president in a period of 3 months, which means we need to give our recommendations to the DPWH in less than that time. We're actually given a maximum of 2 months to come up with a comprehensive review of a 45-kilometer tollway. So it's a challenge. Uh, and another challenge is we'll be doing this for free. We'll be
Wow.
doing the 2 month study uh, for free as an act of service, a labor of love to the DPWH. And we really cannot disagree with the engagement, because DPWH is considered by PERT Consult as a most favored client, and they consider us the same. We have worked with a lot of great projects before. They're satisfied with our performance, and they are a constant source of income uh, for our company. So how can you say no? Okay, we'll do it for free. We'll just find ways uh, to get some returns out of this
Mhm.
later, in terms of maybe DPWH will recognize us and recommend us for some other projects they are doing. You know, so it's an investment in goodwill, actually, which uh, we're still doing right now. It's an it's an investment in goodwill that we think will come back to us sooner or later.
Okay. So the timing was really tight, and you were doing it out of goodwill. So, and then what was the approach that you had to go through?
Well, first thing first, I had to keep my mindset right. Uh, I didn't see it as a problem. I took it as a challenge and an opportunity, because at that point in time I was really struggling on what project I will use as a case study for my APC. And like serendipity, this engagement was brought to us, and it's like a sign from God that this could be the break that I'm looking for. This could be the project that I can use for my APC. And it really was. It really became my case study for my APC. So we need to really strategize because we don't have the luxury of time. Imagine a 40 billion project, 45 kilometers. We need to come up with a recommendation in a matter of 2 months. So we really need to strategize. So what we did is I'm one of the senior team members of the task force that was assigned to the project. So I was the team leader when we did this. So I divided us into two groups because there are two segments. There is the Laguna segment and there is the Cavite segment. So we divided ourselves into two teams for maximum coverage. And the first things first, we need to address the general perception that the project is expensive. So we need to identify why they said that the project is expensive. Because if you simply divide the cost by the length of the expressway, it's really quite expensive if you think about it. But you need to study the drawings. You need to study the plans. What are contained in this expressway? And we found out that there is a high incidence of bridges. You know, in Laguna alone, there are 27 major bridges, while in Cavite, there is a total of 33 bridges. So there is, uh, within the 45 kilometers of expressway, there are 60 major bridges to be constructed. So of course, it will be expensive because the bridge is 10 times more expensive than a road in terms of cost. A
Mm-hmm.
typical major bridge costs between 500,000 to 1 million pesos per linear meter, while a typical expressway will probably cost around 100 million pesos per kilometer. But a 1 kilometer bridge will cost about 1 billion pesos. So it's 10 times. The cost of the bridge is 10 times the cost of the expressway. So if you include the cost of the bridge, it will really become expensive. So what we did is we segregated the structures into different categories. We separated the bridges and what are the costs. We separated the roadway or the carriageway. What is the cost of the carriageway? And then we separated the cost of the all those miscellaneous structures like tall supervision buildings, drainages, box culverts, street lighting, and we put it
Mm-hmm.
all under miscellaneous. And we zeroed in on the carriageway itself because it's the carriageway that will be tolled actually. The length of the carriageway uh, will be the tolled structure.
Uh-huh.
And when we computed it, it's actually not expensive. It is within acceptable range or parameters of a major expressway, similar to what is being done in other major projects in the country. So just by doing that, just by that one stroke of categorizing the structures into their proper classifications, we were able to determine that the project is really not expensive. So what needs to be done now is, now that we established that it's really not that expensive, the next challenge is how will we bring down the overall cost from 40 billion pesos to a more manageable level. We don't have much time. Again, the time element is there. So how can we recover the maximum amount uh, of issues to be able to reach our objective?
Uh-huh.
And then one bright idea, I recall the Pareto principle. You know the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. We
Uh-huh.
focus on the heavy items, 80% of the problem is cost of 20% of the items, the 80-20 rule. So we zeroed in on the 20% of the items, which are mostly the heavy items comprising the expressway. We focus on those heavy items using the Pareto principle
Mhm.
All the other miscellaneous structures there, we can live with that. But the more important thing is we focus on the heavy items. So the Pareto principle really came in handy because we were able to identify the major pay items, which are the major contributors to the overall cost. And these are the bridges and the earthworks. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that needs to be checked are the quantities and the unit rates. The quantities, when we check, there are a lot of factors inside the quantities when we check the estimates. When we see the unit rates, we have what we call the detailed unit price analysis. When you see the DUPAS, there are already waste factors there. The waste factors or the waste allowances are already factored uh, in the unit rates. So why is there another waste factor being added at
Oh,
the bottom line? So these are a lot of contingency factors uh, that unnecessarily adds to the project cost. So we
yes, that's
identified
correct.
all of those unnecessary factors that does not need to be included. It's like although we understand that this is a preliminary engineering design, but the level of detail uh, that was presented to us in such a way that the project, the PED in itself is good to be tendered.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually acceptable to be tendered as a project. It just need to some fine tuning in the details. So we don't need to put all those contingency factors that not necessarily that actually adds to the total cost. We need to eliminate that for the project to be competitive.
Wow. So all in all, when you were doing the compartmentalization, the grouping of the structures, and then you identify which structure really contributes to the cost, and you
Yes.
approach it, and then you were able to identify that it is actually a viable and a feasible project as a whole. And you have made the conclusion that it's good to be tendered.
Yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so then let's see what happens next on the detailed analysis.
So what
I
happens
have a
next is
few sorry, I have a few
okay.
questions, Nancy. I,
Oh,
Yeah,
I
go
put on
ahead.
my note.
feel free to ask.
Very interesting. It's very interesting kasi the project.
Okay,
Okay, so
go
we
ahead. Go
go
ahead.
on how we approach it, the detailed analysis.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is what was done. No, these are the verification measures that we did. After we separated the items into different categories: roads, bridges, buildings, special structures, and then we reviewed the heavy items. We verified the accuracy of the calculation, see how they can be reduced. We check the material sources, including the capacity and traffic issues. Uh, we applied BE on major structures, but aside from the BE, if you're doing value engineering, you should also check that the resulting product is constructable. You know,
Yes.
so you should also check the constructability. And if there are certain portions that does not need to be done right away, then you can defer it to a later period. And we will go back to that in the next slides. But one thing I would like to highlight there is the material source. One major item that I identified here is there's a huge amount of embankment material that is required for the project. I think it's about 3 or 5 million cubic meters of embankment
Oh, okay.
that needs to be put in the project. So I asked, where are we going to get all of this material? So I checked the material mapping that came with the design, and they have actually identified a number of quarries and material sources and their respective capacities. And when
Mm,
I added up the capacities of the quarries, it matches with the requirements of the project. So some might think that it's
Mm.
good enough, but no, it's not good enough. Having the material source capacity matched to the requirements of the project is not good enough. The capacity should be more because why? We're not the only project in the Philippines.
Yes,
We will
correct.
be competing with other developers. We will be competing with other concessionaires. Our contractors will be competing with other contractors in other projects for the same material from the same
Mm-hmm.
source. So we cannot be complacent that the material source capacity is sufficient to cover our project. We're not the only project here. So
Mm-hmm.
it will be on a first come first serve basis. So we need to find some way to reduce this embankment material. And
Okay.
it's really a critical it's really a critical portion uh, of the review. It's a critical highlight of the review.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to identify din, sir, no, yung insofar as time is concerned, the sourcing out of the materials and the sufficiency thereof para makita
Yeah,
natin yung ano, para makita
because without
natin
the
yung possible
materials,
choke point.
Choke
Yes.
point.
yeah, you will have
Sorry.
problem on
Stutter ako.
how will you finish the project if you don't have materials,
Mm-hmm.
di ba, to get to. So
Fair enough.
these are now the specific measures based on our brainstorming and based on our analysis. These are now the specific measures that we undertook. So we reduced the span of the major bridges because you see that there are a lot of major bridges spanning 1 kilometer, 500 meters, 700 meters in length, which are really add to the huge cost of the project. If we can somehow reduce the span of the major bridges, uh, we did shorten some of the bridges. We had one particular bridge there which is around 1.5 kilometers in length, and we were able to reduce it to less than 500 meters just by lowering the design elevations.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, but when we lowered the design elevation, it's actually a double stroke. We hit two birds in one stone there when we lowered the design elevations. When we lowered the design elevations, we were able to substantially reduce the required embankment of the project,
correct.
thereby eliminating the problem of material sourcing,
Uh-huh.
and automatically the length of the bridges, just by the lowering of the design elevations, the length of the major bridges followed suit. They automatically were reduced when we
Mm-hmm.
lowered
Mm.
the design elevations. Of course, you need to check if the reduction in levels of the bridges will not conflict with the maximum flood levels, because
Yes.
in the end, the elevations of the bridges uh, depend in a big part to the maximum flood level. It
Mm.
must be clear. The bridges must be clear that maximum flood level of the waterway.
Agree. Mm. Mm.
Interesting.
Yes.
Galing. I mean, it's very amazing.
Yes.
Na, na,
The fruits of the value engineering was, very it's very interesting, and at the same time, the fact that you were able to save the cost for or check on the ways on how to mitigate the cost for the project, and have it successfully done, and now it's already ongoing. Some parts of it are already operational, right?
Yeah, it's part operational. We have 8 intersections or
Mm-hmm.
interchanges, and we are already operating three out of
Mm-hmm.
the 8 major interchanges. And hopefully within this year, we will be opening one more interchange. So by this year, before the end of this year, we will be halfway there.
Okay. I can imagine the tension during the time of when you had to review everything in 2 months. I believe that for value engineering, apart from the design considerations, you would still have to study. I mean, studying the soil profile itself would take a huge time required just to study the boreholes itself. And how would you be so sure that this will be the design is adequate enough? And then your approach on the value engineering, the specific measures, it will blend in with the design principle that they have, and then eventually serve its purpose. And the fact that you even have in your mind on the ways on how to shorten the the expressway itself, so it will also have an after effect to the end users. We will not have to pay too much toll when
Yes.
we utilize the roads.
Yeah,
So
that's really the intention, because well, we're the concessionaire now. Of course, the concessionaire wants to earn money. I will not say that we don't want to earn money out of this.
of course.
Otherwise, my boss will kill me. But we want to make we want to make the toll rates manageable for everybody. We want to make the toll rates affordable for everybody, while at the same time giving us some reasonable returns on our company's investments. And
Yes.
speaking of that, one other aspect that I identified during the review of the design is it has an ultimate stage, meaning it has a widening portion. So there is a plan for a four lane expressway, but there is what we call an ultimate stage where some portions of the expressway will be 6 lanes, and the additional 2 lanes are part of the project cost. So
Mm-hmm.
what we did is, why don't we defer this ultimate stage? If we remove these 2 lanes, this will further uh, reduce the upfront cost of the project. Uh, we can simply build this ultimate stage at a much later date, say 5 years or 10 years from now. We can just build this later while the expressway is already earning money, and we can finance it on our own by our own earnings from the operational expressway. So that would make the initial cash out for the project more manageable.
And
So
of course,
and
you'll be saving on the maintenance part.
yes, so we save on capex and we save on maintenance, and that's an interesting issue right there, because when I presented this to the APC assessor, uh, very nice lady, very bright, you know, I cannot recall her name, but she's a very nice lady. She is a high-ranking officer of the Land Transport Authority of Singapore, and
Singapore.
really Bill Jones found a way to make her available for my APC. Thank you, Bill Jones, for not making it easy on me. And she really had some interesting questions, and there is one particular question that she asked me that really made me thinking. It really challenged my analysis.
Yes, and
And we'll
we
go there. We'll go there later. It's an
yes.
interesting question. You know.
That's a very interesting question. I think it will be like a spice for everyone who is watching right now. So watch out for that interesting question. So before we move to the question and answer portion of Mr. Clarence's final assessment interview, what were the results of the value engineering and the analysis that you did, or that the company did for this major expressway?
Yeah, this is a good part, because now we are seeing the fruits of our labor. Uh, Once we compiled all our assessments or our analysis, this is what happened. By lowering the elevations, we reduced the cost of the embankment and other structures by 400 million pesos, and it's not small amount of money.
Yes.
And the direct effect of lowering the elevations, which is the shortening of the major bridges, uh, gave us projected savings of around 600 million pesos. That's 1 billion pesos on those two initiatives alone. And then by checking the quantity and the rates and removing all those unnecessary waste factors, we were able to reduce the cost by a further 1 billion pesos. Yeah, and lastly,
Wow.
we were able to lower the cost of the right of way by 3 billion pesos. So all in all, we were able to reduce the project by 5 billion pesos, from 40 billion to 35 billion pesos.
Mm-hmm.
And the
And
final,
sorry, the government.
yeah, and the final approved cost of the project indicates that our recommendations were followed. When the government approved the project, and they published it in the newspapers, in the DPWH website, our estimated cost was there. The
Wow.
result of our
Oh,
the result of our study was there. So it's really a good feeling, knowing that our recommendations are followed by the client. That means
Mhm.
what we did was successful.
That's a
it's
very
very good.
interesting story. And from the results, I think JC would be very interested on the second to the last line, which is estimated cost for the right of way lowered the project cost by 3 billion. So
Which is the bulk of all the savings on this project. So I
yes,
am
Agree.
quite interested how was that achieved.
correct. And speaking of right of way, we know how difficult it is if we're talking about utilizing the government property or the land in the Philippines, especially concerning our the illegal settlers within a specific area. And I we're looking forward to hearing more about this, Sir Clarence.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We will, I recall, I recall the last question thrown to me by the nice lady
Uh-huh.
who chaired my APC. It's
Yes.
not a technical question; it's an ethical question.
Wow.
That really, those two questions that she threw me really challenged my thinking right there on the spot. I was glad that I'm really prepared. Uh, and that's one advice that I want to give to the audience when you're doing your APC. If you're sure about yourself that you're really prepared, you can feel confident that whatever questions thrown to you will be answered. You know, even Bill Jones told me, uh, the assessor will not ask a question for the sake of
Asking.
seeing, or for the sake of asking, or just because they want to see you fail. They don't. In fact, they want you to pass. They want you to succeed. So they will only ask questions which are necessary uh, to test and to establish your level of competence. Nothing more. They will not ask any unnecessary question to put you down.
Mm.
Agree.
That's
Oh,
very comforting.
yes. Speaking of Jace, he will be sitting in for his final assessment interview within this year,
Yeah,
right?
and the
Within
key
next
there is,
month.
yeah,
The
the key there is don't be nervous. Yeah,
Mhm.
stay calm, stay focused. Because if you're nervous, you will forget everything that you studied. If you're
Yeah,
nervous, just stay calm and
exactly.
focus, and don't be nervous, and you'll be there. You'll get there.
Yes, thank
claim
you.
it.
Thank you, sir, for the advice.
So let us take a look at the lessons learned during this case study of Mr. Clarence Quismundo.
Yeah, we had a lot of lessons learned there. First and foremost, this is a usual problem in all of our in most projects being done, not only in the Philippines but all over the world, because employers and developers, they want to their facilities to be completed at the soonest possible time. So they want the project to start right away, because they want the facility to earn revenue for them as early as possible. But the problem there is they want to start projects even though the design is not yet complete, which is
Yeah.
really self defeating, because if you want to save money on construction costs and even on operational maintenance costs, the best way to realize those savings is during the design stage. You need to complete the design ideally, uh, before you really start any major project. And I hope employers realize that embarking on a major infrastructure project on a half-baked design will cost you more eventually. Will
Hmm.
cost you more down the line.
So you are not pro design and build, Sir Clarence. I can sense.
Yeah, and do not forget the aspects of constructability and sustainability.
Mm,
Whenever we value engineer or whenever we change a design, you might be able to save costs on paper, but the question is, how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, you were able to lower the cost of the structure. You were able to change the elements of the structure, but have you made it more difficult to construct? It has to be constructible, you know,
yes.
and the materials should be available. And
Yeah.
what are its effect on the environment? it should contribute to the improvement of your community, and not destruction of the environment. So the sustainability responsibility should be there,
Yes.
and you should consider the efficiency of the design and the sources of materials, because material source is now a major issue. You know,
Yes.
we have how much is the population of the world now? I think it's 9 billion pesos. We're running out of food, we're running out of space, and we're running out of materials. You know, we have to find ways to conserve these materials in construction,
I cannot agree more on that.
Yes.
which is why
I
we have to consider a life cycle approach whenever we study a project. So we really have to take a holistic approach there. We need to consider life cycle approach, including environmental, social considerations, as well as anticipation of certain risks that might happen. And this last lesson learned is related to the question of the my lady assessor during my APC, where in major project, the cost of money is always an expense. Whether the money has an impact, whether spent or unspent.
mm-hmm,
And that one we will
true.
explain that later. How come if the money is unspent?
How can
The,
it be an
the,
expense?
how could it be an expense when it's unspent, right?
Mm-hmm.
It should be savings
Yes.
because it's unspent. Well, we will get to that. You know, that's the trick. You know, cost of money is, is a commercial is a commercial
Mm.
concern.
Agree. Okay, that's an very interesting lessons learned we have there. Actually, the whole part
Yes.
of your case study presentation is very interesting. I'm pretty sure it was not just the presentation on how you delivered it in your final APC, but much more because we have gained so much more information
Insights.
about the project itself and the whole value engineering process that you had to undergo in order for this project to be viable, and this now parts of it are already operational and still ongoing. So with that, your APC journey has been very interesting. Why don't we take a look at the competencies that you have touched when you were having your doing this APC?
Yeah, there's a lot of competencies there. So we have the core competencies, of course, the construction technology and environmental services. Of course, I'm a civil engineer. It's a shame if the construction technology will not be part of my core competency. you know,
Correct.
Yes.
and
Agree.
quantification of cost and costing of construction works, commercial management of construction is all there. And we had the optional competencies, which are design economics and cost planning. And there's the project evaluation, which we actually did. Uh,
Yes.
and the mandatory competencies like client care, DPWH. We're talking about the president and the DPWH here. And
We're talking literally about the bureaucracy of the Philippines, the government of the
Correct.
Philippines.
yeah, and conduct rules, ethics, and professional practice, sustainability, data management. There's a huge amount of data involved in this review. It's a wonder we were able to manage it. And health and safety and team working. So we really need to work here as a team. The enormity of the engagement with so limited time and with so many constraints. So if we did not work as a team, we will not be able to do it.
Yes,
Yes.
agree. Okay, and with everything that you have presented, Mr. Clarence, why don't we take a look and jump into the next part of our program, which is your. Okay, thank you very much again, Sir Clarence. So we now move to the final assessment
Yes.
questions that were raised to you during your final assessment interview. Okay, so
I
when you arrived here in Singapore, was it like a day before? Did you have to fly a day before to be relaxed or
Yeah, I actually flew 2 days before because
wow?
Oh.
I had to visit my brother first. And see how he's doing.
Relax. Unwind.
Relax ourselves, and we went out in the night, had a couple of bottles, just to relax myself. We strolled along
That's
the
good.
park, just to familiarize myself with the environment and with the surroundings. We actually strolled around the area where at the raffles where my interview will be done. He took me
Oh, okay.
there so that I will be able to familiarize myself with the place in advance. You know,
Yes. That's a good
uh,
thing to do. As apart from just strolling around, then you were able to familiarize yourself with the environment or the place that you're gonna have where your interview will be held. Mhm.
yeah,
And that
and
speaks a lot with the determination of Sir
yeah,
Clarence to, to undergo that
I'm like
process,
a
flying
soldier
from
there.
the Philippines to
When I was
Singapore
doing
speaks
this,
a lot.
I felt like a military soldier doing some guerrilla warfare, surveying the surroundings and seeing where is my point of attack. I felt like that when I was
Hmm.
doing it. Yes, because when I'm doing this, I don't have the backing of an established organization. I had some advice from Julie because by the time I'm already a member but not that established yet. Uh, as basically uh, doing it on my own, and you know, but I was really determined. I was really determined. I told myself, if I won't do it now, well, when will I do this? I'll do it now. It's now or never. Either I do this now, or I won't do this anymore.
Yes, now or never. I really like that approach. It's like now or never.
And
Mm.
to the credit of the chairman of the RICS ASEAN there, Mr. Bill Jones, he's really a very nice guy. He really made me feel at home. He made me feel relaxed, and he actually told me not to worry because I actually asked him, what are we going to talk about? Oh, not much. We're not talking that much, but I will be bringing in somebody who is a subject matter expert in your case study.
Wow.
Well, he really did bring an expert in the
Which
case
Bring he
study.
did.
Yeah,
agree, which brings
and that's
us.
another tip that I will want to impart to the audience. If
Uh-huh.
you make a case study, you had to make sure that your case study is something that you're really very familiar and you really know about, because the APC assessor, the committee will bring somebody who is an expert in your case study.
Oh, that's a very interesting advice there, and we'll
Mm,
really put it into our heads and heart. So we have to make sure to study that the project itself before making it our case study. Which brings us to the first question during your APC final assessment interview. Here it goes. So if the widening works will be deferred, cutting the upfront costs, do you think you're really able to save money considering the construction costs years after? So during the presentation that you did, you explained, Mr. Clarence, about why not we defer the construction of the expansion of the two more lanes and then just construct it years after. Then the subject matter expert that was you believe to be the chair of the assessors gave you this question.
Yeah, when she was asking this question, my mind is racing. I'm telling myself, oh, geez, she has a point there. And it really came to the experience. It boiled down to the experience. Because when you're doing the APC, it's not just a stock knowledge that you have here. You bring along the experience, and you need to bring your bag of tricks with you. Your bag of tricks. That's where you draw the experience. Because when they throw an unfamiliar question to you, you need to be able to draw on that experience that you have,
mm,
on top of what you have studied, on and what you have researched with your case study. And fortunately, I was able to do that because I told her, well, you got a point there because 5 years or 10 years from now, due to inflation, the cost of construction will be more expensive than if we will do this now. But the problem here is the cost of money. The cost of money that I was talking about earlier. Because if we do this now, not only are we increasing our upfront cost, but remember this upfront cost, this construction cost will be done on borrowed money. This is a project that is financed by banks and by financial lenders, and we will
Mm-hmm.
be spending this portion of the expressway on borrowed money. And once we do this, we will be paying financial charges and interest, and the amortizations will be bigger down the line. The,
Mm-hmm.
the, the monthly amortization cost will be higher. So it's a huge cost of money that we will be spending in advance. While if you do this later, when the expressway is already earning money, it's already a self-sustaining operation. We can construct the widening works out of our own pockets. We don't need to borrow from the banks, and just by that alone, we save huge amount of money on financing.
Mm.
And
Yes.
that's
True.
that's where the cost of money factors in. Money spent or unspent is still an expense.
Mm.
Correct.
The cost of
Mhm.
money is
Fair enough.
there.
Yes.
So,
It's
Correct.
and when I was telling her that, she's nodding her head. So I think that's a good sign. She's nodding her head, and I think she's agreeing with me, which I believe is true because when it's really in the financial model. I told her our company has a financial model. Before we embark on this project, we have a financial model. All those costs are captured there, and the financial model uh, shows that the project is viable, and it is
Mm-hmm.
more viable if we construct it later because the huge cost of money that is involved by spending it now rather than spending it later.
Yeah.
agree. So
And
considering
one more thing that I added is if we do this now, once we complete the structure, it starts to age and deteriorate, right? And that is an additional expense on the operator. So
correct.
once you construct it earlier, the cost of operation and maintenance of the structure already starts, and it's not getting us any additional benefit because at that point the four lanes can still accommodate the traffic.
Correct.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's not
Mm,
necessary at that point. It will
Mm-hmm.
be necessary later. So we don't get any much benefit if we construct it at that time.
agree. This is
Okay.
really interesting point that you couldn't just look into the construction cost itself, but you have to look into the maintenance and operation cost,
Yes.
the
Yes,
viability of it, and the contribution of it to the overall costs that you will be part of the toll fees of the end users
yes,
as so imagine how much will be saved, how much was saved, not just by the government, but even us end users who will be using this expressway. So a huge thanks to you. A huge thanks
And
to you
yes,
and your team, Sir Clarence.
well, of
and
course,
it's a benefit for everyone. Like it's a win-win
will really
situation for
benefit
everyone.
the region 4A because we will be reducing the travel time between Cavite and Laguna by around one half or even
Wow.
more
Mm-hmm.
when we complete this, and it will contribute to the progress of the two provinces and the millions of people that live in
Yeah.
Cavite and Laguna.
Yes. Thank
It
you
will
very
it
much.
will expand the GDP and increase the employment on that area as well because of the
Yes,
construction. So
yes,
it's the government will impliedly also benefit from constructing it sooner rather than later.
yes,
It's
Mm-hmm.
called smart spending, I think.
yes.
Smart spending. We have really saved a lot with that. So why don't we move to the next part or the next APC question that's also equally interesting, and I think JC would love to share this one.
Okay, so the next question, sir, will be about the ethics, although it borders to the humanitarian aspect of the project as well. So, in dealing with the right of way, you were aware that the illegal settlers do not have a right to be there. Can you just not, or can you not just force them out of the property without settlement?
Yeah, when she asked that to me, uh, it really made me think. This nice lady really knows what she is saying. She's a really,
Mm-hmm.
she's a really very bright, very bright lady, and she knows how to ask the right questions. But I answered her well. Ideally, when I mean ideally, it means legally and contractually. uh, the illegal settlers actually really don't have a right to be there because they're not legitimate owners of that
Mm-hmm.
property. They just settle there and build something without asking permission from anybody. So they really do not have a right to be there, and they don't have any documents to show that they own it or they're leasing it. At least they should be at least renting it or leasing it, but they don't have anything. So just by virtue of the government's police power, you can actually drive them out
Yes.
without having any obligation whatsoever. But while we do not have a legal and contractual obligation to them, the government has a moral obligation to these people because the government is supposed to take care of its citizens, provide jobs, provide the basic services like housing and food and utilities, uh, the social services for its citizens because that's the purpose of why we are paying taxes. You know, the government has a moral obligation to provide all of this to the people. While they may not be able to provide all of their needs, like of course you cannot just give them everything, like provide free education, free food. Well, that's too much. But at least the least that the government can do for these people is to make their life less miserable. And that's why we really have to be careful in addressing these illegal settlers. We need to see that they are well taken care of before they're evicted. We need to see where they're going to a safe place, where there's a relocation settlement, uh, where their basic needs will be addressed, and it's really a matter of uh, dialogue. We really need to show our concern to these people. We need to explain to them that you don't have a right to be here. This is government property, and this is already needed for the greater benefit of the population. But
Yeah.
uh, but we will take care of of your basic needs. We will give you time to prepare, and we'll give you something, a few thousands, or whatever our settlement might be, for you to be able to start a new life in another place. So
Mm.
it's
It's
several steps.
It's very
Agree.
interesting because if the government has the power to repossess real estate or real properties,
Mm.
should and when the need arise. So we call that just compensation in the Constitution. However, in case of the informal settlers, they don't have a right in the first place to be there, to possess the land. They don't have that. So
Yeah,
on the other hand, you will be dealing with people, and there will be human nature will, I guess, prevail and say that they needed more than what they should, than they what they are entitled to. So that's a very challenging part insofar as the reallocation is concerned.
Agree. The question, I mean, the issue on right of way is always something very interesting. No, I think at this point, Mr. Clarence, I think lost his the battery for his
Yeah.
laptop. But in any case, what he has shared really has a strong point, to deliver to everyone. It's not just about exercising your right, I mean, legally, that mean these illegal settlers doesn't have the right to be there and then force them out. The moral obligation is something that has to be, realized by anybody who is doing a construction such as this. I mean, it's for the good of the the citizens, but at the same time you have to, check on the not just the feasibility, but how you this construction is supposed to serve the people, and why not just exercise, if you're going to just exercise your right, being, the
Yes.
part of the legal.
And the interesting, yeah, and the interesting part there, I think that the more challenging part is on the government, on their uh how do they balance their coercive power insofar as repossessing the site, and at the same time their obligation to provide shelter and to provide the basic necessities of its citizens in a manner that is fair and just.
Yes.
So there's a very important interplay of the government powers there, the coercive and the rehabilitative powers of the government, because both powers to the power to repossess the land is enshrined in the constitution, and there's a republic act. I just forgot the name, that the urban poor or the settlers, informal settlers, are entitled for relocation in the event that they needed to be relocated. So
Yeah,
it's a very good and it's a very interesting uh, question,
Yes.
and
And
the
it's
answer
very
is also
controversial
very
as well
interesting and
too.
it's actually
satisfactory.
the
It's very
Lina law.
controversial.
I recall the Lina law because Senator Joey Lina is the one who introduced or authored that
Yes.
law. Yeah,
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, so for this, I was talking to JC earlier, and Mr. Clarence. Thank you for sharing about this ethics question, because it begs the question to a lot of people, because when they see the budget and you would have this line item for right of way, and the value engineering exercise that you did for this, or your team did for this certain project, has cut down to about 3 billion. That's a lot of money.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The
And we
fact,
have to be reasonable, when we talk about right of way. We're not just talking about the illegal settlers. We're
yes,
talking about
correct.
legitimate owners. And there are two ways to address just compensation. We have the zonal value, and we have the fair market value. And
Mm-hmm.
normally it's the higher of the two. At the same time, when you value engineer the project, you need to find ways to reduce the areas that will be affected by the
Mm,
expressway. And by reducing the areas to be affected, you're also reducing the uh, the extent of right of way that you will be acquiring, and that's where the huge savings came in. And we remove a lot of unnecessary expenses. Like, of course, if you just cannot remove illegal settlers without spending anything, but the key is there. They are illegal settlers. You really cannot spend so much on illegal settlers without affecting your budget. If ever you will spend more on ROW acquisition, you should spend more on the legitimate owners uh, rather than the illegal owners, or the illegal settlers. Because if I am a legitimate owner of a property that will be affected by a certain project, I will feel bad if I feel that you're treating illegal settlers better than me. You know, because you know I'm an I am a legitimate owner. I pay my taxes. I acquired this property through legitimate means, and all of a sudden we're on the same level. We're being treated the same. So
Yeah, so
yeah,
that's another very interesting problem,
yeah,
the equal protection of the law.
yeah,
So there you have to treat them fair and
yeah.
based on the circumstances that they are in.
and I think during the actual execution of this whole project, the right of way would need like longer time in order to realize the value of get what you want to have this project, up and running.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're really our frontliners because you cannot build a roadway without a right of way. So
Mm-hmm.
Agree.
is there, and the critical path belongs to them. The most critical path belongs to the right of way
Yeah.
team because they're preparing the way for us to be able to construct.
Because without the right of way team, you cannot possess the site.
Yes.
Correct. I think that's the reason why Singapore is going into the tunnels
Yeah.
in order but of course the huge cost is there to consider. I'm just looking
And
forward.
knowing how small their country is, I mean,
Ah.
the if you're going to use extraterrestrial or the overland trains, it would cut to the very limited real estate they already have. So I think the most feasible and the most, I think, valuable for them is to go underground.
Agree.
Yeah.
Okay, but the ratio of the population and the area of land that we live in the Philippines is already comparable to how Singapore is right now. So I think
Yes,
our government, I mean, this is also a call to the government to do the urban planning. And I think Mr.
Yeah.
Clarence is playing a vital role, being involved in this expansion and being the head of the contract administration for Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation. And it's really such an honor and privilege to have your story heard here in
yes.
PAC. And this very interesting question as well can pave even a number of structured training or a number of webinars, I think, to discuss the whole
Yeah.
thing on how it can be approached. Just
You,
looking
you
at
can,
your case study, we can come up with a number of CPDs, I think.
yeah, I think
Mhm.
just looking at the individual slides, you can see a couple of CPD topics there.
Yes, that's true. We can expand it. We can expand
Yeah.
it to several CPD sessions.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Clarence, for sharing that very interesting APC journey of yours, and of course, without anything after the final assessment interview, how did you spend your 2 months? 1 to 2 months
Waiting time.
waiting time for the
Well,
results. I can
during
imagine the excitement and the
during the first during the first few weeks, I tried to remove it out of my mind, you know, just to relieve myself of the stress. But as the time approaches, and I really cannot avoid thinking about it. That's where the anxiety comes in. Did they really pass?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you start to doubt yourself, even though at the time you're confident. But as the date approaches, you start to second guess yourself. Did they really pass? you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a great
But
feeling.
the reward is very, very good. I mean, after going through the ordeal,
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
the reward at the end is very fulfilling. It's very rewarding.
yeah, and I was really professionally recognized, not only by Perth Consult, my previous employer, but this current employer. No, it's like deja vu that I was with the team that studied the project, and then later when I had an employment with Metro Pacific, the project was handed to my lap. Well, this is really my project. I I,
Mm,
I
it's
think
meant for
I think
you.
I think this project is really meant for me. It's my destiny. This project is really for me.
It has followed you, Sir Clarence,
Yeah,
from Perth and now with the Manila Pacific Tollways.
yeah. In
And
fact,
I
my
guess,
my, my familiarity with the project allowed me to spearhead the task force of my team in Metro Pacific on how we will execute this project. We brainstorm on the construction strategies that we will do, and my knowledge of the project really helped us
Yes.
in executing this project.
Course, not it's not just your company who is very fortunate to have you on board, from the planning to the execution stage of this project, but the end users as well. When I go home and visit this expressway, and I think I would always be thinking of Mr. Clarence has been here. Mr. Clarence is spearheading the planning, the project control, and the contract administration for this project, and we are really very proud of you. And thank you, Sir Clarence, for your time
my
and sharing your experience.
And
pride for you.
I'm really feeling grateful
Such a very. Mhm.
to the British fellow that gave me a break, that introduced me to the RICS. By the way, his name is Daniel Alcon.
Oh,
He's a fellow of the RICS. He's
wow.
currently he's currently in Malaysia. I think he's a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators in Malaysia.
Mhm.
He's a very senior guy, and when he learned when I passed the APC, I immediately revised my LinkedIn profile and added the post nominals there, and he's the first one to see it. He was the first one
Wow.
to see it and congratulate
Oh,
me. And what he did was he created a special page, a one-page announcement at LinkedIn, congratulating me
Wow.
for passing
oh,
the APC, because
that's nice.
he told his friends he was proud of what I was able to do with the limits of access that I had, with no organization to lean to.
Mm-hmm.
Basically did it out of my own resources and
Uh-huh.
initiative. And he said he was amazed that I was able to do it, and 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 it's quite fast.
Mm-hmm.
As I was able to do it in about 16 months. The normal timetable for an APC initiative is 12 months to 36 months. That's the range, from 12 to 36. So am I right in the middle, or slightly ahead of the middle? So, but
That's
the
good.
fact that the amazing thing there that he mentioned is not the time that I was able to do it, but that I was able to do it with the limited access and resources that I had, the limited network in the organization, in the RICs that I had.
Yes.
So that's why he is really proud of what I did, and I'm really grateful to him. He paved the way for me.
Mm-hmm. And of course, it's not just at the time 2013 PICQS is still a baby, and we are in the process. Chair Julie was in the process, and together with the founding members of PICQS, they're in the process of developing the whole structured training. And I'm pretty sure that being a member of PICQS, you were one of the foundations of how PICQS is now, and you have inspired a lot of us, and hearing your story has inspired me more. I believe JC and the rest of
Yes,
our viewers
definitely.
also are equally inspired, and so with that we are very grateful to you, and we would like to share to everyone your message or your quotable quotes about quantity surveying before we finally we eventually say like see you to the rest
Yeah.
of our viewers.
Let's patch.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Clarence, for
Thank
that
you, sir,
very
for
wonderful experience that you have shared with us. It's not just, every APC journey is very unique and yours is exemplary, because the project that you have shared has also opened a lot of minds, not just technically, I mean, the process of value engineering, but also in the aspect of being doing your professional executing your works professionally with ethics on top of your mind, and of course doing it morally. Thank you very much, Sir Clarence. JC.
thank you, sir, and congratulations uh, to the PICQS Singapore for this initiative, and thank you for having me. And Sir Clarence, you're one of the inspirations, my inspirations in this journey. So I'm really admiring you. This with all the obstacles, in spite of the difficulties you have encountered, you still persisted. That you, in the end, you emerged victorious. And thank you for paving the way for all of us, including Ma'am Julie and the entire PICQS, for paving the way for all of us,
Yes.
for the way to make it for the path to be easier to walk to. So, thank you for that, and thank you for continuously contributing and sharing your expertise and knowledge in PICQS.
Yes, and we have a message from one of
Yeah,
our viewers,
you're
from
welcome.
Eric. It is very insightful and interesting lessons learned and APC topic. Congratulations and well done, Patch Team and PICS. Thank you, Eric. And we
Hi,
also
Eric.
have somebody watching, Mr. Joseph Walter. Thank you very much for tuning in. I you see, Mr. Clarence, your reach is way beyond global. Thank you very much. You are inspiring not just one, but a lot of people. And we also have here RJF De La Cruz. Sir Clarence is one of my remarkable instructors in PBay. You are such an inspiration, sir.
Thank you,
Wow.
RJ.
Oh, that's
See,
nice.
really, just reading those comments, sir, would really melt anybody's heart, and we're really very
It
Yeah,
proud of
makes everything worthwhile.
yeah.
Yes.
It really the pleasure is mine. The honor is mine. I cannot possibly pay back the people that helped me in this journey. But the best way that I can do to make their contributions, to make their help to me worth it, is by paying it forward, by sharing what I had uh, to all those people that followed me. And that's what I will do. That's what I was doing, and that I will continue to do as long as I can.
No, thank you very much, Sir
That's nice.
Clarence.
I think that's one of the lessons that we can take away from here, from this discussion as well, is that it doesn't end when you get chartered. Uh, you have to, or the journey continues by helping others reach the chartership or reach the finish line as well. So I think that makes it more worthwhile. While
Agree.
passing the chartership or getting the chartership status is already worthwhile, it makes it even
Mhm.
more worthwhile if you contribute and help others. This APC journey has become now our shared destiny, if you will. We are all in this together. So thank you, sir, and thank you, PICQS. I'm
Thank you.
forever
Yes.
indebted.
Anytime. Give my regards to Julie. Is Julie
Yeah,
watching?
I think
she
so, sir. He is. She is.
Regards, Julie.
Okay, sir, is there anything that you would like to share to our viewers? You have been sharing a lot, but is there any like few
Final
words
word.
or any final words before we would really love to have this conversation all throughout. We can have spent until midnight and we're still not finished and we're still very inspired with every sharing that you have for us. But um we would love to keep you here, but still we would love to hear your final some few words for our viewers.
Yeah, just one final advice. I think this should help on those who are preparing their case studies. One quantity surveyors is not the skill. We one challenge that we observe, and I'm sure Julie would agree with this, is how we express ourselves. You know, it's always a challenge because we are technically minded persons. We are engineers, architects. We are technical persons, and what they say: engineers are good in mathematics but poor in English. It's a challenge to express ourselves clearly uh, in the English language. Is In fact, that's a disadvantage that we have on native English speakers, and Julie and I wanted to address that. So once you write something, you are aware when you are writing something, the competency statements and the write-ups in your APC documents. Do you have a certain word count, right?
Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
get fixated on the word count. If you get fixated on the word count, uh, you will block the ideas that will come to your mind. Just let your ideas flow freely. And once the ideas flow freely, you write whatever comes into your mind. You write continuously. Don't mind the number of words. Don't mind the word count. You just write everything that comes inside your mind. Let it out, and you can just edit it later, manage it to fit it to the required word count. That's what is important. Don't block your ideas. Don't get fixated on the word count. fixated on the number of sentences, etc., etc. Don't get distracted by that. Just let it flow.
I
Thank you very
agree.
much.
That's what I did actually on my write. I was like, I really write long sentences, so that's one of my struggles. But uh, thankfully, I was able to stay within the word count. So yeah, just write, and write. Edit later.
Correct. Okay, so there you have it, friends and colleagues. Before we finally end, let's have another message here. From Decoy Decada. Thanks for the informative and inspiring experience, Sir Clarence. From Eric Ada. Well, thank
And
you very
since we're reading messages, I got a message from Ma'am Julie. She says, "I'm very proud we have a member like Clarence who has significantly contributed to PICQS." That's from
much.
Chair Ma'am Julie. So she's watching us right now.
Chair Julie, thank you very much for your support and thank you very much for this patch project of yours where we can be able to share with all our members and non-members on how APC is being done and the APC journey itself. It's Every APC journey is unique and we are grateful for every experience that you'll be sharing.
Yes.
Mr. Clarence, thank you very much for your time in
Thank
sharing,
you, sir.
for being so selfless in sharing and paying it forward. You have paid it forward a lot more to us. You have inspired a lot of people, and with every webinar that you have conducted with PICQS, thank you is an understatement. But we would always say thank you and thank you very much. Okay, so with that, we are not going to keep you so much. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. You can still watch this
You're always
recorded
welcome.
video through our YouTube channel, Patch with PICQS. So have a great weekend, everyone. We hate to say goodbye, but we will see you again next time as we feature our next APC candidate and successful candidate. Watch out for that. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a
Thank
good
you for
weekend.
watching.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sir Clarence.
Let's patch with Philippine Institute of Certified Quantity Surveyors or PICQS as your hosts, AJ Paredes and Jose Carlo Padilla share an exclusive interview with Metro Pacific Tollway Corporation's Senior Contracts Manager, Engineer Clarence Elmer Quismundo. Listen to his own APC journey and the story behind his case study, review of the preliminary engineering design and budgetary estimate of a proposed major expressway. Let's hear it from him firsthand as Engineer Quismundo shares tips on how to possibly ace your final assessment interview. All these and more this Saturday, April 17, 3 p.m. Manila time. See you!